Yo, what's up, guys? I'm back here with another video, and man, what happened today is something I never even expected to happen, and this is concerning Bryce Mitchell as well. So I was coming back from a workout, and I was thinking, I was coming back from a workout this morning, and I decided to, check Instagram, and then I hear, Dana White gets mad at Bryce Mitchell for something, and I was just thinking, oh, I wonder what it is. So I checked it out. I only saw a few clips. I didn't watch the whole thing, but Bryce Mitchell was saying some crazy ass shit, like crazy ass shit. Like I'm risking even uploading this video because of the fact that this could get easily removed off YouTube for whatever he says, and I just want to say here right now, I'm not going to try to comment or try to be political, but it's kind of hard to do it because of what Bryce Mitchell says. Honestly, the situation's just really funny, and I mean, let's get started with the video because I really want to. I really want to show this because it's fucking crazy, bro. It's actually crazy. Like, man, like I don't know what's. I don't know exactly what he's gonna say, like, in general. I just know, like, in a couple clips he said some weird things. I think he said, like, Hitler, he was think that Hitler would be a great guy to fish with, which I didn't think was that bad, but then I heard there's even worse, like, even more, like, worse stuff. So I made this video, and we're gonna check it out. I meant to make this, like, right when it started, but shit got caught up. I'm busy, I'm employed, so I got out of my job, but I was able to get back and make this video. So let's do it. Let's watch it because oh man, it's just fucking crazy. It's really crazy. And I just want to say, like, I will give my opinion on this. I'll try not to be so polarizing, but it's really hard. So honestly, no, fuck that. I'm just gonna say my opinion because I have nothing to be afraid here. Because I don't care if some people disagree with me. It's freedom of speech. I'll give my opinion just like he gives his opinion. I believe in free speech. I believe in, people can say whatever they want, what's on their mind. But people are also free to criticize, to punish, maybe not the government, but private. If you say something bad about something, a private company has a right to fire you. So, sure, I can talk about this. So, let's start. And you can already tell what Bryce Mitchell is gonna say is gonna be some whacked up shit. He's had some shit takes before. He's had some crazy things that he had to say, but this is like on the pedestal. This is first place when it comes to this because man, I don't even know what to say. It's just speechless. I'm just speechless. But let's go.
And me being a hater. Oh, I know.
Yeah. He could have not slept all night,
Yeah,
like there's no telling.
Exactly. And so here's what I say about him, Hitler, hailing the Nazis. I really don't think that he was, because I honestly think that Hitler was a good guy based upon my own research, not my public education indoctrination. I really do think before Hitler got on meth.
You can already see in the coach's face, he's worried. He's like, well, no. What is he gonna say? You can already see the look on his face, like, oh no. Look at him, bro. He's like, oh god. And guess what? I mean, he says Hitler wasn't that bad of a guy, and due to my own research, I don't know what research he's doing, but it's research, all right. And he's just looking like, what the fuck is he gonna say? And believe me, I don't even know, honestly. All I know is that it just gets worse, and I'm just wondering how worse does it get? Like, what does he say? But we'll see.
He was a guy I'd go fishing with. He fought for his country. He wanted to purify it by kicking the greedy Jews out that were destroying his country and turning them all into gays. They were gaying out the kids. They were queering out the women. They were queering out the dudes. You know what her first tranny surgery ever was? Happened to be in Germany before Hitler took over. You know the books that everybody makes fun of Hitler burning? You know what the books was? Queer books. Hitler burned queer books because Hitler didn't want a bunch of queers.
That is a look of despair. I'm sorry, that is a look. If you can see where I'm circling at, that is a look of despair. This guy already knows his podcast. He already knows he's in trouble. No, I have to point that out. What Bryce Mitchell is saying, it's just astonishing. It's astonishing. Like, it just makes you wonder, how hard does Josh Emmett hit? How hard does he hit? Because this is just crazy shit, man. He's going on something. I mean, let him cook, I guess. I don't know. Hitler was a good guy. I mean, I've heard that argument so many times before. It's nothing new. It's been around ever since Hitler was alive, And this is nothing new, People are always trying to justify the Nazis' actions and all this stuff. They're trying to see, oh, Hitler wasn't perfect. Oh, the war is written by the victors. Like, it's always the same shit. It's always the same stuff, man. And, I mean, I'll give my opinion. I don't want to. I'll just continue the video.
Destroying his nation. They can't produce children.
But what about
when he got on meth and he turned on Russia? I believe that's when he kind of went full nutty. And I don't think that he was just like the best dude ever. And when I say I'd go fishing with him, I'm not saying he was the most trustworthy dude or I'd love him or whatever. But at some point in Hitler's life, I don't think he was that bad of a guy. I really don't. And now, was Hitler perfect? No. But he was fighting for his people, okay? And he wanted a pure nation with people. You know what the Jews was doing? They was charging interest. Christians aren't allowed to do that. Like if...
Wait, let's just go back. he's just like... Nah, I'm going to stop putting that out. I know that's his coach, right? So he's just like, no, not again. He knows he always does these takes. But yeah, he's not fazed. He's just like, okay, here we go again. He's not even surprised.
They was charging interest. Christians aren't allowed to do that. Like
There's plenty of Christians charging interest everywhere on the
I
planet
don't.
right now.
If you need to borrow $1,000, Rolly, I give you $1,000, and you wouldn't give me $1,100 back. You'd give me $1,000 back.
Sure,
But
between you and I,
these Jews were controlling his country, bro. They were so cold and starving. They were using their valueless money as insulation. They were stuffing dollars in their jacket to stay warm. They were burning dollars in their wood stove. Hitler comes up and says, hey, I'm kicking the Jews out of here because they're killing us with interest. And then now that he lost the war, he's the bad guy. Now, he ain't perfect. I'm not a Nazi. I don't love Nazis. I don't want Nazis to win the war. I'm just saying they were in a bad spot and Hitler come to power. But
it's
Elon is
bad to take out a whole, like, to put a whole race into camps.
Right. And that's what your public education
in.
will tell you, Rolly, because you believe your public education, because you haven't done your own research. When you realize there's no possible way they could have burned and cremated.
His own research is QAnon and those Reddit forums where it says r/white supremacy. That's his research. But, hey, I'm not judging. It's his opinion. Free speech, Dana White even said this, and I'm gonna click on that video. I'm gonna talk about Dana White's response, but we'll just go over this. But I'm just saying, whenever I use my own research, it's always a biased source. It's always a biased source that fabricates evidence. And I've been researching this, like how to find good research, how to find valued, newspapers, and it's always his arguments like, oh, everything's indoctrinated. They're all controlling the narrative. It's like, it's always that same argument, but I'll address it. I'll just address my criticisms of this. But I'm not going to be like, here's the thing. Okay, let me just continue this video.
Made it 6 million bodies, you're going to realize that they did not, the Holocaust ain't real. What about the Bolsheviks when the Jews killed tens of millions of Christians? Oh, we don't want to talk about that.
Well, I don't know much or anything.
Well, let me tell you about the Bolsheviks. It's when these Jews come over and kill the shit out of all these Christians. And they don't teach that in your public indoctrination centers. Guess what? That's why Tucker's getting schooled on this farm, baby, because I'm going to tell Tucker the truth. And the truth is that history is his story, okay? And history's written by the victor, okay? Hitler lost, so you didn't get to hear.
Here's the thing. He's not wrong. History is usually always written by the victors, And he is right. There is always some bias in history. Because history is just a recount of events that happened, And it's always written by someone with some bias. So he's not wrong. History is definitely biased. There's always going to be different point of view to things. But I'm going to dispute why that doesn't really support his argument.
His side of the war. You didn't get to hear how the Jews took his country over. You didn't get to hear what they were doing. And do I believe that he tortured Jews to death and killed them and all this stuff for fun? No, I believe that they were work camps and that they starved to death because his very army was starving to death. You know why they lost the war? They ran out of fuel. They didn't have food. They didn't have fuel. They had 10 million plus prisoners. How are you going to feed them? You're not. You're losing a war. They're going to die. And that's what happened. And I don't believe that he's that bad of a guy. But I'm saying all this about Hitler to say that, if anything, Elon Musk would be against Hitler because Hitler, he was for freedom. Elon Musk is for control. Elon Musk wants to put a chip up your ass and know every thought and control.
And it is the Elon Musk thing. And you can already tell in this video that he's just spewing a bunch of nonsense. And he's going on these whole arguments about, oh, they're this and that and that. And it's not new. What he is saying has been said for decades. For decades now, it's been said. And there's always been that it wasn't really 6 million. Oh, Hitler wasn't that bad. Oh, he improved his country. I mean, we've all heard this. And here's the thing. Are these counterpoints valid? Sort of. I would say some of these counterpoints that Bryce Mitchell says, they are true. I'm not disputing that they're false. Some of these, and I'll list them later, some of these are true. But does it justify what Hitler did? No. Does it justify World War II? No. Does it justify the Holocaust? No, not at all. These were things that did not need to happen. These were things that Hitler wanted to happen. Hitler didn't accidentally create these concentration camps and these death camps. He didn't accidentally force his whole nation to go into a war and provoke the Allies into starting the war. He did not have to do any of that. And it's always about ambition and ego. That is what causes war. Ambition and ego is what causes war. No matter what, there will always be some leader who tries to go above and tries to assert their dominance over other countries. When they don't respect the sovereignty of other nations, that's how war starts. And it's been the case as long as humans have existed. You know, starting with tribes, then city-states, then empires, the nations. It's always been like that. So, I'm going to stop my yap and just complete the rest of this.
Control every move that you make. Hitler just wanted to free his people. In his prime. Now, when he got on meth, I do think he went bad.
In his prime. Prime Hitler. He always uses the meth argument, which, Hitler was definitely on those drugs. He was definitely, I wouldn't say there's a lot of proof, but he was definitely zooted, because some of the decisions he made during the war were kind of, like, crazy, so you would think that there might have been some influence towards that, but Prime Hitler. Prime Hitler is crazy. I don't know. That just makes me laugh. In his prime, yes, he was very good at killing Jews and causing a war. I don't know. Kids don't get CTE. It's bad for you.
I need to move this a little closer to me, or if you'll scoot a little to the right.
But we can't talk about the Holocaust like it was a real thing in front of me, because I don't believe it. I don't buy the bullshit that they try to tell you at the public school.
I think that the biggest issue, there are things that you said, like Germany was in a bad place, and Hitler was like super pro Germany and all of those things. But when you take a whole, like what we did to the Japanese during World War II, that was wrong. We can't take all the Japanese people and put them in camps. Okay?
Well, let me justify that real quick. It's time of war. Did we kill those Japs?
What's that?
Did we kill those Japs?
No.
You know there was a large Japanese prison in Arkansas?
No, I didn't know that.
Arkansas housed a lot of Japanese prisoners in World War II, because what Rowley is talking about, when World War II went down, when Pearl Harbor went down, we couldn't trust none of the Japs. So all the white people and all the black people rounded up the Japs in America and put them in not concentration camps, That's a bad word. It was prisoner camps. They didn't starve them, though. They treated them very well, and it was very well known. Okay, Rolly, here's the question to determine what's bullshit. You're about to go and get captured. You got to your east. You got the Russians. To the west, you got the Americans coming in. Which way you running, buddy? East or west?
The Americans.
You damn right. You bet your ass. Okay? And so...
Now, Bryce Mitchell makes this point of Japanese internment camps, which was a dark period in American history, for sure. I mean, it was not justified, rounding up every Japanese citizen, persecuting them, and then putting them into camps, forcing them out of their homes. That was just completely unjustified. And he tries to justify it, but he justifies that, and he justifies the concentration camps. He compares these things. So, I don't know when I should stop the video, but we'll see.
We put those Japs in camp because we had to for the safety of this nation, and you bet your ass we'd do it again if we had to. It was a different time, brother. It was a whole different time. And also, I don't think there's as many Japanese people in America as there is today.
Well, regardless, during wartime, I understand that things are different, right?
Things are different,
but there's certain things that I can't. I think that there's a better way. For example, I don't think taking our best generation, and again, I know my lane is not to be a military scholar, but I can tell you there's a war in Europe. I'm not taking my son and sending him on the beach in Normandy. There's another way. And just flooding the machine gunners and running up our best generation, 17, 18-year-old kids, up a beach through water to storm France, I'm not going to do it. I'm absolutely not going to send my son, and I wouldn't go either. There had to have been another way. And I think it was such an egregious loss of men to take that beach. I just can't.
Let me try to justify it. Let me try to justify D-Day, because it does sound like a really bad strategy. We lost a lot of people.
If they're not your kids, it is.
Yeah. Well.
I mean, say if it's your kids,
Rolly,
it is. But if it's
Rolly, I know what you're saying, brother. I know what you're saying. You care about Americans. That's what you're saying. You don't
care
want
about people in general.
You care about people.
Yeah, we can't fight every war, and that was Europe's war.
So let me try to justify it, brother. The D-Day incident. First thing I got to say, did you know that 45 tanks were supposed to be with them?
Okay, so obviously they're talking about D-Day now. Coach is trying to he knows he's wrong, but he's trying to dispute that and say oh, you shouldn't think of it. There's a better way to say it. Because here's the thing, I'm not saying Bryce Mitchell's an evil person. He has a good heart. He has a good soul. He is a very kind person, and he does good things. And I just think that Bryce Mitchell, he buys into this propaganda. He buys into this stuff. Because here's the thing, he's not had a proper education. He's a fighter. He got CTE, so he's not thinking right. And, I have to be honest about that. Because Bryce Mitchell isn't the type of guy to be really intellectual. He's not educated like someone who's actually gone through the education system, who's actually gone to college, who's actually learned some history. And it just speaks to how bad the education system is in America. Because now, with the internet, and this is something I want to say, this is for all the people who are watching, the internet isn't a place of truth. There will always be information that's false. There's misinformation everywhere. There are going to be people who will lie and say false stuff and push false narratives, and because of that, a lot of people don't know what's the truth, what's the lie in the internet, and because of that, they buy into stuff that isn't true. And this has just been the case for thousands of years. Propaganda has always been a thing that's just been around. There was Nazi propaganda in the 40s and the 30s and the 20s. There was U.S. propaganda and all this stuff. Every country has done propaganda. They have done these things. And I'm not saying that the U.S. is the angel in this case, especially when it comes to World War II. America did some bad things as well. And I just want to say, the Nazi Party and Hitler, they were inspired from U.S.'s from the United States segregation system, from the Jim Crow laws. And this is very controversial, but I just think that what Bryce Mitchell is saying is just an example of misinformation and not knowing what actually happened. You know, when he says his research is just biased sources. It is just false information. Because if you actually know the truth, if you actually know the evidence, the heaping mountains of evidence that the Holocaust did happen, that there were 6 million deaths, that Hitler was not a nice guy. He was not a good guy. He was an evil person. And I was going to dispute this, but honestly, I don't really want this to be a political channel. I don't want to go and talk about, oh, this and that. This is not a global issues channel. This is just an MMA channel where I make predictions. But I just want to make this video just as a warning to all the people who go on the internet and believe this stuff. Because there are a ton of people who think that Bryce Mitchell is right. And it's a sad thing in today's society that our education system has failed us to believing that Bryce Mitchell, you know, that people are defending Bryce Mitchell. And I'm not saying Bryce Mitchell's a bad person, but I'm saying that he is wrong. I can criticize his opinion because that's my freedom of speech. Just as, like, he is free to say what he believes. And, you know, the coach, he's trying to dispute that, and he's disputing it respectfully, which is what we should do. We shouldn't pick sides. We shouldn't spread hate. We should dispute things, but we should do it respectfully. No ad hominem, none of this stuff. No accusing stuff, because I see this a lot on the internet, you know? If you say something against another guy, well, he's going to go insult you. And that's not how public discourse should be. It should be respectful. So I'm going to say this in a respectful way, that Bryce Mitchell is wrong. That Hitler was an evil guy. And here's the thing. He made not good points. I'm not saying he made good points, but I'm saying he made a couple true statements. Here's the thing. If you wanted to have a proper history of Germany was not in a good place before Hitler came to power. It was not in a good place. It was after World War I. The Treaty of Versailles crippled Germany's economy, and with the debts they had towards France, they were pretty much struggling. Their people were starving. Inflation was at a high, all-time high. And he was right. They were using money as insulation because it was so worthless. And this is where I digress from what Bryce Mitchell says, because here's the thing. Did a lot of Jews run the banks? Yes. But this is where I start to go into why this whole Jews control the world thing. This has always been the case, that there has always been anti-Semitic propaganda. How Hitler rose to power, he wanted to unite the German people. And he wanted the German people to have a common enemy, to create a pro-Germany stance, because that's what gets votes. Germany was pretty much struggling, and the people didn't have a national identity like they did before. And Hitler used that lack of national identity and used propaganda that villainized the Jewish people, saying that they were to blame for World War I. They were to blame for everything wrong with Germany. Here's the thing. To blame a whole race on a single problem is just wrong, and it's just stupid, and it's ignorant. But the German people were fed up, and Hitler decided, I'm going to use that to get power, to get sympathy of the German people. He created the common enemy. He created that scapegoat, and the scapegoat was Jewish people. What Bryce Mitchell is saying about the Jewish people and the queers and all that stuff, that's just Nazi propaganda. Nazi propaganda written by Nazi party officials, written by Hitler, spread by Hitler's messages and speeches. So his research was just going into propaganda. And it happens, you know. They take propaganda from the Nazi party and they believe it to be true, and they believe everything else to be indoctrination. There is always going to be propaganda everywhere. There's always going to be pro-American, pro-Germany, pro-Nazi, pro-white supremacy, pro-KKK propaganda everywhere. It's just a thing that will always be there, and there will always be people who try to spread those messages. You can't stop it. But the difference is you have to be aware of which is propaganda. How can I know what's a true source? And Bryce Mitchell doesn't know that. He's a victim in what I say, in misinformation, and a victim of propaganda. He believes this stuff because it's told to him. And he believes it because he can't think for himself. He can't think, okay, this may not be true. This may not be valid evidence. And this is what happens when you have a lack of education. into what is true. And when you have a lack of education, you believe anything. And this guy believed the wrong thing. So that's just what happens. And Hitler, back to what I was saying, Hitler used this anti-Semitic, because here's the thing, anti-Semitism has always been a thing in history. It's always been ever since the Romans kicked the Jews out of Judea. It's always been a thing. And even before that, the Romans were having anti-Semitic messaging as well. Jewish people have always been persecuted. And Hitler, all he did was just use that silent anti-Semitism movement that he saw in Austria and Germany. He saw how people viewed the Jewish people, and he used that as his message to unite those anti-Semitic people to become his voter base. And this is what politicians use all the time. This is what literally Trump used in his last messaging. Trump wanted to win this election, and the way he wanted to win is to get the people riled up. When you get the people riled up and you get them emotional and you give them a common enemy, and you say, I have a solution to vanquish this common enemy, they will go to you. Trump used this against immigrants. You know, he said, oh, the Haitian immigrants are eating the dogs and cats. That is the same thing that Hitler used with the Jewish people. And he justified a whole genocide of a whole race. He justified sending millions, tens of millions of Jewish people, disabled people, homosexuals, and gypsies, and Romani. Like, he used, like, any race that he didn't see perfect, he used that as justification to send them to death camps. They started out as work camps, concentration camps, but they escalated to death camps. Because that's what happens when hate turns into violence. And the Nazi people supported it. The people of Germany, they supported it, or they were blinded into thinking it was not happening. And that's how Hitler was able to get into power, by creating that common enemy. And now Bryce Mitchell is buying into that. And it is not new. What Bryce Mitchell is saying is not something that's revolutionary. A lot of people, neo-Nazis, it's been a thing that how neo-Nazis have been for a while, like decades now. So it's not new. Bryce Mitchell, what he's saying has been said by some people, and I just want to let you guys know, it's like, if it's a lack of education that's causing this. Bryce Mitchell isn't an evil person. He is just misinformed. Misinformed about what really happened. Misinformed about a lot of things. Misinformed about many things. And it's just due to a lack of education. And I'm going to just leave it there, because I gave mine. I disputed why that is just not true. And there are many things. Oh, Hitler supported his people. He made Germany. He cared about Germany. He cared about Germany to get his power. Here's the thing. He didn't care about the people. He cared about having power, to making Germany great again, when he meant he wanted Germany to be an empire to rule over millions of people. He only cared about power and ambition. So Hitler wasn't this saint for the German people. In fact, he actually made the German people worse off after his reign, because he split Germany up. He made Germany a big, bad, evil country. And as a result, millions of his soldiers died for a war that he justified through his hate and through his ignorance. And through his ambition and ego, he caused the deaths of millions around the world. 60 million. Bit more than 60 million people died from that war. And I'm not saying Hitler was the only person causing those deaths. But if Hitler never came to power, World War II would have never happened. So, I'm going to just leave it there. Hitler's not a good person. He is an evil person. And it should be like that. And it's common sense. Justifying a genocide of a single race, and killing 6 million people, and causing a war that killed almost more than 50 million or 60 million people. It's just not, that's not a good action. And you can justify how much you want, but that's the truth. Killing people, starting wars, causing genocides isn't a good person thing. That's what evil people do. So, anyways, I'm going to stop that, and I'm just going to go And we're gonna watch Dana White's reaction.
We're
gonna skip this dumbass ad because
skylight that converts emails, PDFs, and photos into
why not?
And I'm sure you guys heard what Bryce Mitchell said. If you have,
Yeah. Anyways, so Dana White was at the Power Slap conference, and pretty much, he said, he said some things, right? And Dana White reacts to them, and I mean, you can already see what Dana White's gonna say, but we'll see.
haven't said some probably. I've heard a lot of dumb, ignorant shit in my.
And I'm gonna give my opinion on what like Dana White says, like on what Dana White should do or what Dana White has done. I'm just gonna give my opinion about that. I'm not gonna try to make it political. I'm just gonna. This is already super political enough, and honestly, I don't want to make a video like this again. This is just a one-time thing. I'm never making a political video. I'm not discussing about history. I'm not gonna do any of that shit. It's just gonna be MMA from now on. Sorry, it's gonna be MMA from now on. That's it.
But this one's probably the worst. When you talk about Hitler, he's responsible for the death of 6 million Jews, and he tried to completely eliminate a race of people. World War II was the deadliest war in history. 15 million military deaths, 45 million civilians, and 25 million soldiers were killed in World War II. Second of all, Hitler is one of the most disgusting and evil human beings to ever walk the face of the earth, and anyone that even tries to take an opposing position is a moron. That's the problem with the internet and social media. You provide a platform for a lot of dumb, ignorant people. We've obviously reached out to Bryce, and when we read what he said and let him know how we feel about it, I don't even, we're beyond disgusted. So, for those of you that don't know what's going on, good, you're lucky. For those of you that do, that's what I have to say about it. Who's got the first question?
Hey, Dana.
Hey.
It's obviously not a fun topic to talk about the Bryce stuff. I think that's a great statement that you just gave. Does Bryce Mitchell face a punishment from the UFC for saying
That's what everybody wants to hear about punishments. Free speech. I don't have to love it. You don't have to love it. You know.
I agree with that, the free speech sentiment. Is there a concern, though, Brian, if he goes out and wins a fight and gets a mic?
Well, that's the beautiful thing about this business. For all of you that hate Bryce Mitchell, you get to see him hopefully get his ass whooped on global television. I mean, what do you want me to say about it? You know where I am with free speech? We're disgusted by it. I think he's probably one of the dumbest, literally one of the dumbest human beings. Let's not forget that this is a guy who took a drill through his nutsack, then had to reverse it and put the drill back out of his. That's the level of stupid that we're talking about here. And I could probably go on for 10 minutes talking about how dumb Bryce Mitchell is. But guess what? Bryce Mitchell has a podcast.
I believe this was episode 1.
Duh, what a way to start. But that's the world that we live in now. Dumb people who are really stupid and really ignorant can have a voice. We don't have to agree with it. We don't have to like it. I'm giving you mine and the UFC's position on what he had to say. You know, and this is no different than things that I've said about Strickland, you know. But I will say this. Out of all the dumb, ignorant shit I've heard in my life, this has to be the dumbest and most ignorant.
Last thing from me on this. When you spoke to Bryce about it and said, this is disgusting, did he have any sort of like, oh, I was just talking, or did he walk it back at all?
His thing was, I'm sorry if I put you guys in any position, and, you know.
But not sorry for saying.
He's stupid. He's dumb. You can't fix dumb people. You know what I mean? When you have somebody that's really, really stupid, and that's who we're talking about here, what do? How do you talk sense to a dummy? You don't.
Anyways, well, I mean, Dana White says, like, he condemns what he says, calls Bryce Mitchell dumb multiple times, And I mean, that's right. You know, Bryce Mitchell is not really the smartest guy in the shed, but yeah, Dana White is very, very strongly opinionated on this, and this is like surprising. You know, there have been a lot of UFC fighters who've done some shitty things. They said some bad things. They said some slurs. They said a lot of things. There have been some many shitty things that happened with UFC fighters, and this is the one that makes Dana White kind of flip out. Not flip out, but like this is the one that pisses off Dana White, and you know it's just completely justified, honestly, because you think a lot of people, you say dumb shit, and I like the thing he says is like we don't have to. I like where he says that free speech, it doesn't matter who says what people say. It's like it's free speech, but I just think that like free speech also doesn't mean that you're free from consequences. It doesn't mean that you know you won't get criticized. You know, when people say free speech, we think that you can just say whatever you want and you have to agree with them, but that everyone has an opinion. In my opinion, I have that free speech to be able to criticize someone, to say that, hey, this is wrong. That's free speech too. And a private company that isn't part of the government, so anything that's part of the government, like government buildings, schools, libraries, post office, anything funded by the government, they can't give you any punishment at all or affect you if you say anything. And that's free speech. But when it comes to private entities like the UFC, like that store you work at, or the Walmart or whatever, any private business that's profit or non-profit that's not funded by the government, they can do whatever they want with you. If you say something bad, they can fire you and it won't be illegal. It won't breach your free speech right. And that's because free speech only applies to government entities. And I think a lot of people misunderstand that. They think free speech just means I can say whatever I want and I won't get any consequences from any time because it's a free country. It is a free country. The government can't do anything, but a private business can because it's private. They're not controlled by the government, so therefore they're not subject to the limitations of the government. So, you know, Dana White, he did an interesting thing. He said that Bryce Mitchell's not going to get any punishment. He said, well, his punishment is maybe losing in the next fight. And I kind of like that. I just don't think that... I mean, here's the thing. What he said was just wrong. I mean, I just think that there should be some punishment. There should be some punishment. And I just don't believe that, you know, there are some things you just can't get away with, you know. Dana White doesn't put that tight of a leash on his fighters, you know. And, you know, a lot of people are comparing this to Strickland. You know, Strickland does say some bad things. He does say some shitty things about Muslims and gay people and a lot of things. He is not like super bad, you know. And it's free speech. And Dana White, I kind of like that he's sticking to his word. He's not going to punish Bryce Mitchell for saying that, but he is condemning that. He's saying that, oh, what Bryce Mitchell is saying is not right. He is dumb. He is stupid. What he's saying is stupid. And that's all he needs to do. You know, it's his company. He can do whatever he wants. And if he doesn't want to punish Bryce Mitchell, that's fine. But, I mean, for all the people defending Bryce Mitchell saying, like, oh, he's right. Yeah, he's based. It's like, you know, that's just all. I already know your IQ is below 90. And it's just simple, you know. And I try not to get political. Like, I don't want to do a political video like this again. It's just stupid. I hate arguing this shit because when you argue with someone as dumb as a person who will defend Hitler and defend what Bryce Mitchell's saying, you can't win that argument. You can't win an argument against a dumb person because they're too dumb to change their mind. They're too dumb to accept a different viewpoint. When you're smart, you're able to... When you're smart and intelligent, you're able to adapt to many different things, including opinions and viewpoints. When you're dumb, you're ignorant. When you're ignorant, you won't listen to anybody. So what's the use arguing? I'm just going to give my opinion. But I don't care to argue about this shit because this shit doesn't bother me. You know, what Bryce Mitchell said was just wrong. It was ignorant. It's harmful. But I'm not a social justice warrior. And Dana White isn't either. He is not a guy who's going to go persecute someone for saying something he didn't agree with. And what Bryce Mitchell said was definitely way over the line, and it was just fucked up. But in that same case, it's his company. He can do what he wants to do. And if he doesn't, he can disagree with Bryce Mitchell any day, but that doesn't mean that Bryce Mitchell should be punished for that. So, in my opinion, I think Dana White does definitely keep a loose leash when it comes to his fighters, because his fighters do dumb things. Conor McGregor with the rape case, John Jones with the beating his wife and the pregnant lady hit and run, and Bryce Mitchell with supporting Hitler, and Sean Strickland. It's like so many fighters have done dumb and stupid things, and Dana White, they're fighters. Fighters aren't really the sharpest tool in the shed. Whenever you listen to a fighter, you can tell, like, damn, like, this guy's not speaking right. And fighters, they got CTE, they're brain damaged. Listening to a brain damaged person, it's just kind of. It just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. And before I end this video, I want to give you a message. Be careful of what you read on the internet. Be careful to try to find unbiased sources, or at least find reputable sources that give out good information. Don't listen to these guys who aren't reputable, who aren't valid people, who aren't actually educated on the topic they're speaking about. Don't listen to these guys. Bryce Mitchell doesn't know a lick of history. He's not been educated in any type of history. He's never studied history. He doesn't have a degree. He probably doesn't have that much of a high school education either. He's probably not taking a civics class. He doesn't know anything. So to take his opinion serious about a topic that he doesn't know about, it's redundant. It's stupid. It's ignorant. And it can be said about a lot of people on the internet. A lot of people on the internet gives voices to people who don't deserve voices, or who are just dumb and stupid, and they get voices. So listen to those people. You may think I'm stupid, you may think I'm wrong, and that's fine. You don't have to listen to me. I have bias. I'm biased too. What I'm saying right now is biased material. So listen to someone who is reputable. Listen to the facts. There is huge mountains of evidence proving the Holocaust was real, that it killed 6 million people, that the Nazi Party and Hitler was an evil person. And there are huge mountains of evidence. Don't listen to these guys who nitpick sources, who take the most unreputable, the most biased source and say that is the truth. Because it is not the truth. The truth is what is on paper and what is actually reported. So be wary on the internet. Take an internet misinformation course or something. Like, learn about how the internet can trick you, because the internet is not a place of truth. It is not something you go for the truth. You want to learn the truth? Go to a college. Go to a library. Read the books. And all books have some bias too, but at least they're written by people who studied history, who've studied all this stuff. And they're better sources than some basement-dwelling Republican, 40-year-old, like, hillbilly guy who says, vaccines cause autism and they're out to get you, man. Put tracking devices in your vaccines. Don't listen to those motherfuckers, bro. Listen to the people who are actually reputable. And you can keep believing this stuff, and that is fine. I'm not stopping you. I'm just saying, be wary of what you read on the internet. Don't listen to these guys who don't know what they're talking about. Don't take these fighters seriously. This is what I'm going to say. Don't take a fighter seriously when it comes to anything apart from fighting. Because these guys are brain damaged. They don't know things. They're probably not that educated if they're going into fighting. And a lot of these fighters, they only know to fight. So when we talk about anything else, they don't know shit. So don't listen to these guys. Don't listen to fucking Conor McGregor. The man's on coke, and he has CTE. And I'm speaking this as a guy who studies neuroscience. I study brains. Let me tell you, brain damage does affect your thinking. It affects your intelligence. People who have brain damage have way lower IQs than they usually do. So don't listen to these guys. Listen to someone who actually studies this shit. Who actually studies history. Listen to a guy who's a professor in history. Because they're the ones who actually give out not the truth, but they give out reputable knowledge. They at least give something with evidence that supports it, and not just wishy-washy propaganda. And last thing about freedom of speech, you can say whatever the fuck you want. I can say whatever the fuck I want. Bryce Mitchell can say whatever the fuck he wants. Dana White can give his opinion and say whatever the fuck he wants. It does not matter. It's America. You can say what you want. But that just because you can say what you want doesn't mean you're free from the consequences of saying that. If you're saying this shit and you're working at a job and the company fires you, they're perfectly able to do that. Freedom of speech only protects you from the government. Private entities, they don't give a shit about the freedom of speech. If you say something that isn't in line, well, you're out of there. So, yeah, this is going to be my one and only political video. If you ask me to give me any more comments, if you want to argue with me, you can go fuck off. And I don't know why I went to my Gmail. And apart from that, I don't know. It just went to my Gmail. Hopefully, I'm just going to cut that out of the video. But, anyways, that'll be all. I'll see you in the next one. Don't ever expect me to make a video like this again because it's just stupid. And I don't want to cover this shit. And Bryce Mitchell's a fucking retard. So, yeah. Bye-bye.